China's not an attractive example. I'm not saying that, but I sure think it is culturally becoming more powerful, not just militarily, culturally.
Well, it's controlling its culture, and it's done that in the past as well with some pretty tragic results. But I think it's pretty. Looking at the footage of San Francisco, I think it was. It's worth noting, Andrew, that all those cities that seem to have those dreadful problems to the extremes that we saw in that footage there are Democrat-controlled cities. And in fact, if Joe Biden went walking down one of those streets, I doubt he'd look out of place. In fact, half the drug addicts could probably look at him and think, man, that poor old guy there, he's in trouble. But anyway, Chinese culture, I think I'd better sit Xi Jinping down and explain to him pop culture and rock and roll and how it works. Because clearly from the new rules they're bringing in to temper what goes on, what pop charts are allowed to have in them, they're concerned about sissy boys, and they're concerned about kind of slightly effeminate male pop stars. And it's clear from the directives that they think this is corrupting their male youth by turning their male youth less masculine. But I'll have to explain to Z, Andrew, that rock and roll doesn't work that way. And the reason you have pretty boy bands is in Western pop culture, you have pretty boy bands and you have bad boy bands. So for your every Beatles, you've got a Rolling Stones. For your David Bowie, you've got a Lou Reed. For your Oasis, you've got a Blur, and so on. And the reason is, of course, that it is to sexualize not men, although some men are obviously attracted to them, but it's to sexualize women. And it is the young girls, the teenage girls, who kind of graduate from the pretty boy bands to preferring the kind of more hardcore, more slightly sexually aggressive rock and roll bands. Andrew, you know this full well because you, of course, were in a rock and roll band, as was I. We were both in rock and roll pop bands at pretty much the same time. You were hidden behind the drums.
A 60-40 band, I thought it was, but I'm happy to wear the rock band.
I was on rhythm guitar in my band, and I guess we can leave it to the viewers to decide which was the pretty boy band and which was the kind of more Rolling Stones aggressive, sexually aggressive band. I guess viewers will quickly draw their own conclusions on that. So I think Xi Jinping needn't worry about his sissy bands corrupting the men. I think he's going to find that a lot of very disgruntled young teenage girls if he gets rid of his sissy boy bands. But the only reason we know for banning a rock group is to make their records go up in the charts. It worked for the Stones, it worked for the Beatles, it worked for everyone else. So banning these pop boys will just make them more popular.
Well, I've never worried about those bands or the Elton Johns or whatever it is that might freak out the Beijing dictatorship. I'm thinking more about things like gangster rap and all that kind of stuff, which I do think has been a really destructive kind of influence on impressionable young people that probably need a more positive sort of life message than guns, girls and drugs.